Hi everybody, my name is Monika Ryan and you're just about to watch my video slide presentation with the topic Parenting Different Teenagers. Hope you enjoy it and find it interesting, and thank you for watching. Cheers. Got it. Hi, I'll repeat again. Hi everybody, welcome to Parenting Different Teens. I'm Monika Ryan and thank you very much for watching. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge that I'm presenting from the lands of the UN nation, also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands from which you are all watching, including any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I would also like to pay my respects to all elders past and present. And a little bit about me. So I'm Monika, mum of 2 neurodivergent teens. I have a few university degrees. I've done lots of courses and upskilling. My work in the past has entailed pathology, medical research, physical and complementary therapies, disability support, program coordination and coaching. I am now coach and mentor at my fairly new business Minglewit, and my interests are philosophy, self-development, learning new things, and art. So talking about lived experience, education, and working with autism families means that I have insight, even though it's limited, but I have insight into the multitude of expressions and challenges of autism. So I'm writing multitude of expressions and challenges is because it's just such a diverse group of people that we are in or part of. And so it only can be quite limited, my insight. But I do have a lot of empathy and I'm able to relate well to the autism community. I want to point out that I'm not an expert, so please consult with a psychologist or other specialists for urgent or severe support needs, and take only, of course, what works for you. We are all at different stages, I acknowledge that, and all in different circumstances in our journey. You are different. You may know more. You may have different ideas and approaches, or you may disagree with me, and that's all fine. So the content here is, I'm going to talk a little bit about language within the autism context, a little bit about statistics, then parents' needs and teen needs, and then positive relationships. First up, language. So I've chosen 2 expressions within the context of autism that are being fairly widely accepted. Some people prefer to use autistic, so they would say, I am autistic. And it is used when people see autism as an inherent part of their individual identity. So in their eyes, it defines the ways in which an individual experiences and understands the world. There are also a lot of people who do not see autism as part of their identity. So they don't want to be identified or referred to as autistic and prefer person-first language. Neurodiversity is a term that just means that we are all different, that our neurobiology is all different from individual to individual. People just are not the same. Neurotypical in this context means basically that an individual is of typical or average development and average intellectual or cognitive functioning. And this contrasts with neurodivergent, which refers to an individual who has less typical cognitive variation, which includes autism, ADHD, dyslexia, etc. This term, neurodivergent, is often used with reference to autistic spectrum disorders. Now you might wonder why I'm showing colored pencils. What I just want to say here is it's important to know that within the neurodiversity or neurodivergence of our communities, we could be represented by different colors. But what it means, usually this bell-shaped curve usually means on the left-hand side, you're not as good or you're not performing well. And on the right-hand side, it means, you know, you're really good, you have a high IQ or whatever it may be. However, in the neurodiversity context, we see autism maybe as a brown pencil or an orange pencil. There may not be as many, but they're just a different color. They're not defect, basically. We're just different. Now this one I want to point out, I know there is a watermark on there. I bought this picture because I'm going to use it again. So there was a problem with the link they provided me, so I use it anyway for the moment, but I did pay for it. And the reason why I'm using it is because I really like it. And what I like about it is what I don't like about it. And it basically gives the message that on the left-hand side is the lazy person who doesn't apply themselves, who underperforms, versus the people in the middle, the average people who meet expectations, versus the cluey rocket scientist who is really into applying themselves and performs well. Now, this is something that this kind of curve used to be applied in a context of, I suppose, the autism spectrum, where on the left-hand side you were called, well, on the right-hand side you were called a high functioning, and on the left-hand side you would be called low functioning. But this is actually something that is a big no-no, and I completely disagree with this way of thinking, and I believe or assume that you also are not believers in this kind of curve, but rather in this one. So just to mention a very famous quote by Temple Grandin, "I am different, not less," is just summing it all up nicely, I think. One thing that I also am really interested in, and I thought it sometimes helps to look at the perspectives, let's step out of our own family sphere or our own community and look at all the people that might be autistic and their lifespan. So usually around the birth, after the birth mark, you know, the early childhood, there's a lot of support up to maybe even 10, 11, 12 years. There's quite a lot of support for autistic communities, for parents to help their children. And that used to be much less in the area between 12 to 24 years. But now there are more and more supports for this group of people, for people who are still very young, but they are already approaching adulthood. The only issue that I find is when I look at supports for families and for people, when you look at the whole, basically the rest of the adult period, there is very, very little support. And we need to really catch up to help these people who might be struggling. Now I'm going to show you a slide with some statistics that are a little bit maybe depressing, but it's actually not that depressing. This is not the slide yet. It's not depressing that there are about 63,000 in Australia autistic teens and preteens in the age of 10 to 19 years. The reason why I'm showing you this here is because I'm interested in this particular group myself, because within my business, I'm aiming at supporting parents of those teens and preteens. And secondly, if you have a child within that age range, I mean, even, of course, not necessarily just in this age range, you are not alone. There are many, many, many kids, well, autistic kids or kids with autism, whichever you prefer, and you are not alone. Just this a disclaimer, there are a lot of autism data, statistical data available, and they range from prevalence from 1 in 100 down to 160, down to 1 in 50. And I've even read a white paper that was based on a study in Victoria, based on the, what was it called again? The autism support for kids package that was available before the NDIS. And they claim that they found a prevalence of 1 in 30. So we are not sure what the actual prevalence is, but we are a lot of people within this population. So this is the statistic. This is the statistic that you may or may not know about. So why our kids need help is because of the statistics you see on this slide. Of course, as parents, we don't need to know this perspective. We are the parents of our kids, or the grandparents, or the carer of autistic kids. So we want them to become happy, fulfilled, independent individuals, and we want them to have opportunities to be successful. So why do we need these statistics? So I'll just read them out quickly. About 60% of autistic adults are under or unemployed. 87% have mental illness. Autistic people are 9 times more likely than the general population to die by suicide. And autistic people have an average life expectancy of just 54 years. So this sounds really scary and negative, and I don't mean it to be that negative. Just wanted to say that these are statistics that actually raise the alarm bells for organizations or schemes like the NDIS and Centrelink, and government incentives and schemes that are being offered or started up based on these statistics. So it's important to have these so that our government actually does something about it to help us. The reference, by the way, comes from Dr. Jack Den Houting, Why Everything You Know About Autism is Wrong. She spoke at Macquarie University at a TEDx event in 2019. Now, of course, a few years have passed since this talk, and in actual fact, I've noticed a shift in what is actually happening. There's good news. We're finally getting much better at understanding autism, and this means that we are also getting better at finding ways to helping our kids. And so why are we getting better? It's because more research in the past few years is informed by the autistic community itself, and is moving away to trying to fix autism by working towards supporting and building capacity. Also, we know that autism providers are becoming more aware, and sometimes even themselves come from their own lived experience. So a lot of providers, support providers, have lived experience, and from that perspective start their business. Business have also become more competitive and have to try harder to understand us and find solutions. And in all, more supports are informed through the neurodivergent community. So that I don't know whether you found the same or similar things, or just through searching for supports, but it's just the awareness is increasing, and we still have a way to go, but it's getting better. So now I want to jump into actually what do we parents need. And as with everything I say here, I think you might already know all of this, or you might already know other things or more things. But from my perspective is, and also a lot of common sense perspective, I suppose, we need to put our oxygen mask on first. So we need to pay attention to our own health and well-being if we are to effectively deal with our challenges and then help our loved ones. It's important that we put our oxygen mask on first and manage our own stress. And I had to learn this the hard way. I went through years of severe depression and anxiety myself. and just still learning and still trying to get myself to put myself first before I can help my kids. This also involves effective stress, having effective stress management tools, and there are organizations who provide us with tools, and again, you might know of some of those organizations that are helpful, and they may not even be within the realm of disability or autism. They may be within the place of mental health. Then we need to recognize our efforts and strengths. So a lot of times, either as parents are being told we're doing something wrong, indirectly or directly, or it's ourselves. We could be our own worst enemy, and we blame ourselves for making mistakes, or we think we make mistakes. But the truth is, we are all doing many things that are positive and worthwhile for our teenagers, and we need to reflect on all the things we do well as parents. Also, what we need is to become confident in moving forward and what we are doing well. So for that, of course, we need maybe tools, and we might also need community. That leads me to knowing that we are not alone. When we actually are connected to a community, it might be small, it might be big, it might be within our own little organization, or not organization, our own little community where we live, or it might be online. But becoming confident in moving forward is a very important part of helping our kids, and that's what we need, the confidence and recognize ourselves. Now, what our teenagers need, and what I put here, of course, it's not just what teenagers need, it's what other people need too. But in this context, I'm just saying, okay, this is what our teenagers need. So I put first up identity, belonging. Identity, what I mean by that is for them to actually accept themselves for who they are. And belonging, meaning finding their tribe, finding their niche, feeling that they are part of something. Another thing that I think teenagers need, or anybody, of course, but our teenagers need to feel valued and included. And the next thing, I just popped in emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence, some people are aware of what emotional intelligence is. Some people actually are very good at emotional intelligence and actually don't know that they're good at it. But a lot of our kids, and maybe ourselves, I don't know, but a lot of our kids, or kids on this autism spectrum, or kids with autism or autistic kids, lack emotional intelligence. Then what our teenagers need, and by the way, there are emotional intelligence courses available, like with everything that we are present here, there are ways to find help in certain areas. Next part is positive mindset and self-esteem. So again, positive mindset, something that's being used a lot nowadays. Which is, of course, very important to have, and the positive self-esteem. Then something that I suppose could be connected to the belonging word is the connectedness and well-being. So connectedness, what I mean with that is to be connected, not just to be at home and be disconnected from community, but to be connected to the community, whether it is a connectedness where people feel, the kids feel comfortable to have a milkshake at a coffee shop and can feel that they're connected with the community somehow. And well-being is obviously what it is. It's the mental and physical health and well-being. And of course, last but not least, is the independence. Is what happens with our preteens and teenagers. They're getting ready, well, in a natural sort of kind of way, like other teenagers or their peers, getting ready for adulthood and independence. And so they need to develop that. Okay, I know this is a big jump and I'm rushing through, but while I was doing this slideshow or creating this presentation, I was thinking, what actually can I share that I think has been really helpful for me personally? And that is actually finding out about the drama triangle, which was a term or system coined by Stephen Karpman in 1968. So the drama triangle is basically a relationship triangle where we can assume different roles within this drama triangle. But in this context, I'm just saying, let's say the victim is our teenager. Victim sounds a bit extreme, but what it means is basically I'm helpless and powerless. It's a situation where they are not independent, they can't look after themselves, they can't stand up for themselves if they're that victim in that victim space. And I would like to look at it, just compare ourselves that maybe parents can be rescuers or persecutors. Now, I'm not saying you are rescuers or persecutors, but if I can actually contrast this victim as a teenager as a victim to actually the teenager not being the teenager, but a 5-year-old. When we have the relationship we have with our 5-year-old is, yes, I am responsible to help you. I know the answers. I might not be really the persecutor, but as a parent, you don't know, you are only 5. I know this is not safe. Don't take your hand off the hot plate, otherwise you get burned. So when we shift from the parent of a 5 or maybe even a 10-year-old to a parent of a 16-year-old, then the relationship should change. And we should not be saying as much anymore, I'm responsible to help you. And we should not say as much anymore, you are wrong and I'm right and you need to do what I say. Because that keeps our teenager in that situation of I am helpless and powerless. So how can we change this? Or what is the alternative? And again, you may or may not know the next step is the winning triangle. It's called an empowerment dynamic. And that was actually developed by A3 Choi in 1990. So what that means is that the parent, in this case, is not the persecutor or the rescuer anymore. We actually turn into actually a caring coach and an assertive challenger. And what that means is that we take a step back, and even though we might know our young person is struggling immensely and we feel that we need to rescue them, there is the alternative that we can step back and try and respect the ability that there might be an ability, or that there is an ability of them to think and feel for themselves and ask for their needs to be met. I'm not saying it's easy. It sounds easy. I'm still struggling with that because my rescuer comes onto the stage a lot of the time. Another thing other sort of role we can play is the assertive challenger, so that we basically ask our teenager what they want, for example, without blaming or shaming, punishing or putting them down. So that give them a chance to basically owning the power to choose and respond and focus on their outcomes. And so they get into a way of thinking where they can believe that they are able to solve their problems, or I don't know, problem for one of a good word. So basically, if we can, as parents, become this so-called assertive challenger, I'm still getting used to these words, or the caring coach, it does facilitate or help our young person to shift from victim to again, I'm using this word here, or the words vulnerable creator. It sounds a bit strange, but anyway, that was part of the, what's his name? Part of Asery Choi's this terminology. So I know there's no time here to talk about how to do it, but I think it's worth starting a conversation of how we can actually let go of being the parent of the 8-year-old or the 9-year-old and become the parent of a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old and see how that works. And it really empowers our kids. It really, they feel listened to, they feel respected, and it takes practice for all of us, for us parents and for our kids, to move into this new relationship. So I know these are a lot of words, but I'm going to read them out. So the drama triangle and the winner's triangle are two powerful tools to look at what goes on underneath the surface of behavior and our relationships with others. By having knowledge of the two models, we can consciously watch our behavior and reflect on which roles we take. And this can result in more effective relationships, decision-making, productivity, and well-being. So let's review. So I've talked about language, and basically the main message is for me, or what I want to come across, and what I'm sure you agree, is that we are all different, but we are not less. And as, of course, autistic people, if an autistic person says this, I'm not different, I'm different, I'm not less. Now with the statistics, I think I personally find it important because it helps me to step out of my own circle. But it also shows how important it is that we need support and capacity building to create equity for autism. Research, influencers, and support providers are getting much better at this. The oxygen mask, basically, again, we need to look at ourselves first. We need to support ourselves first and keep our bucket full. And it is so much easier to help our loved ones. Then community, this is a big one I find, is that we're not doing this alone. We are not alone, and it does help if we are able to be part or become of a community where we can share and learn and support each other. And finally, something that I really, really value is the concept of the winning triangle, where the parent-teenager relationship has changed, has shifted to I'm okay, you're okay. I am as a parent, I'm okay, and you as my child, you are okay. And we are on equal levels, respect each other, and acknowledge that we are just the way who we are, and we are okay. I have got some credits. I know it sounds maybe a bit strange, but I want to credit, I got the presentation template through Slides Carnival, the images by Unsplash. And by the way, I had a picture here, which I took out, which was made by an autistic teen who wants to remain anonymous. And now, thank you so much for being here and listening and not leaving the meeting. And if you have any questions, you can find me at my Facebook page or with our group here, which we're going to stop sharing now, but please ask any questions you would like to, or even start a conversation topic. Thank you very much.